Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Mahmood and today we're going to be talking about your return to school. I'm joined by Ms. Gibson, our head teacher, and also Mr. Warner, our deputy head teacher. We're going to start off around some questions about the new news that came out last night about masks and visors.
Okay, so as you will know, and as you will know, the government have not been, what can we say? They haven't been consistent in the advice that they've given schools about opening. And so for us at Lea Manor, we always thought about, what we understood to be the best thing. So before the announcement, we already had masks. And so we had ordered masks, we have them already, we've got them in place because we knew that at the time there was a lot of talk about if you were going into the shop or if you were going on to any sort of transportation that you should be wearing a mask. And so it logically would stand to reason that you would need to wear them in schools. The World Health Organization has been saying for quite a while that young people from the ages of 10 to 19, whilst they have good recovery, do transmit the same as adults. And that's been going on across, and I've been watching a lot of news about that because there are other countries where young people have gone back to school. So the data and the information is there. So as a precautionary measure at Lea Manor, we had already ordered masks. And we debated whether or not staff should wear masks, etc., and what types. But staff will be wearing visors. And it's important that parents understand that that is what is going to happen. They're clear visors. You can clearly see the teacher's face, etc. So there's no need for people to feel uncomfortable. They will be wearing the visors because, as much as we talk about young people and their resilience to COVID-19, if they can still transmit the illness, they're taught by staff of all ages and of all ethnicities, and so we need to make sure that staff are protected as equally as much as pupils. But we will have masks. The expectations that pupils will wear masks. They will wear masks outside of their bubble. Now, Mr. Warner is going to go a little bit deeper into the bubble and how that would operate. But just so that parents understand, what we've done at Lea Manor is that we have 5 bubbles. So pupils are in year group bubbles, and they are, I believe it's 4 entrances into the school.
That's correct.
And where there's one entrance which are shared by 2 year groups, there are different times in which they will enter the building. So we maintain as much as possible we preserve the bubble. The whole thing's about preserving the bubble, and it's really important that when pupils do return, that they learn how to exist in the bubble, and how parents will need to support us in making sure that happens. So that's kind of like a really brief overview of what we've done and how we were ahead of the government in terms of the masks.
I think as well, it's all about collective responsibility. It's about students taking responsibility for reducing their risk of exposure and transmission, and also obviously the exposure and transmission both to members of staff within the school and also the wider community out there as well. So we're really asking for everybody's support to buy into this collective responsibility to reduce that risk.
Okay, excellent. I think I've gauged obviously the teachers are going to be wearing visors. So for you, Steve, as a student, if I'm coming into school, when would I typically be expected to wear a mask, not wear a mask, and what are the rules around that?
I think, as Ms. Gisman said, the expectation is obviously for students to be wearing their mask on their way to school. When they arrive in school, depending on pupils' year groups, they will have a designated entry point into the building. They need to keep their mask with them, wearing it properly as they enter into the building through their designated entry point. They will then enter a part of the school. We've used the term mini schools. So we've divided the building up into these mini schools, these bubbles, where different year groups have different parts of the building allocated to them. Within those mini schools, they will have their social time there. They will also have all their learning there. So when a pupil enters their mini school area, their zone within the building, then it comes down to personal choice whether they wish to wear their mask. We also recognise the fact that it can be a little bit restrictive at times, and particularly can get quite hot and uncomfortable. So some pupils may wish, when they're within their mini school, to remove their mask at that point. That's down to personal choice. What is very clear though, as soon as any pupil steps outside of the building, whether they are going out into a dining area to eat, or whether they are going into a social area, the expectation will be that they put their mask back on. and certainly when they leave school at the end of the day, again, they leave with the mask on as well.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So obviously we've talked about masks, but one of the other things that we see a lot more of now post-COVID is sanitizers. You see sanitizers, you see wash stations. At Lea Manor High School, what have you done and what have we done with regards to sanitizers and helping students to keep their hands clean particularly?
So what we've done is we've bought and installed sinks which have a pressure pump at the bottom. So we've got extra sinks all around the school, you'll see them everywhere, and they have a bin next to it, swing bin lid. We've gone down to that detail in terms of the bins that we've got, so we can dispose of rubbish in a safe, covered, sanitised way. So every area has a number of sinks, so students will be able to wash their hands on entrance into their bubble or their mini school, and they can, wash their hands after they've gone out to their designated lunch areas, which Sarah will go into a little bit more into, and when they come back. And then every single member of staff has been issued with a sanitised box, and in that box is sanitizer spray for the desks. There is sanitizer wipes, as well as the spray and the tissues for that. There are gloves, and there is sanitizer as well. So what will happen with the pupils is that at the end of their lesson, they will sanitize the desk, and when a pupil walks into the classroom, because they will be moving around lessons in their bubbles, they can sanitize their desk on entry as well if they feel that they need to after it's been done at the end of the lesson. So that sanitizing of the table has been built into the timing of the lessons and the movements, so that it's always sanitized.
Okay.
I think it's important to also add at the end of each school day as well, the building is deep cleaned. So every day is a fresh start following that deep clean as well.
Okay, excellent. So information now, I think we've talked about bubbles and a little bit about lunches. Can I just have a little bit more information with regards to how you're going to ensure that you're maintaining the mini families and bubbles during lunch times and social times?
As part of the mini school setup, each mini school has a designated social space and a designated eating area. We've actually added some additional eating spaces within the school to facilitate this. We are maintaining the 2 lunches across the day, but what we will be doing is to support our management of the building is each year group will have an allocated lunchtime and an allocated what you might call social time. So for example, if we take year 7, when we have lunch 1, that's their opportunity to go to their designated eating area where they will be able to eat.
Okay.
Lunch 2, they will then have that time, they will go to their designated social area, and they might have what might be called that time to run around outside, let off some steam, or potentially may wish to stay in their bubble and just have a bit of relaxation and social time. What then happens is, so when it flips over, so where year 7 had their lunch in lunch 1, in lunch 2, a different year group then goes into that area, so they switch around.
Okay.
What will happen though, between lunch sittings, again, there'll be that deep cleaning of the area. So for example, if we're going to talk just about our canteen area, that will be deep cleaned, thoroughly cleaned down in that period between lunch 1 and lunch 2. The short of it is, pupils, when we come back in September time, will only have one opportunity to purchase a hot meal within school, whereas usually they would have the 2, they could choose lunch 1 or lunch 2. When we come back, because of the management of the situation, they will just have an allocated lunchtime.
Okay, excellent.
What we are committed to though is giving all pupils the opportunity to purchase a hot meal in school if they wish to do so. I think that's very important, particularly as we head into the winter months.
No, without a doubt. Okay, so quite a few of the questions that have been answered as we're talking, so I'm not going to repeat any of the ones with regards to entering and leaving the building, but if we can just have a little bit more clarity on start times and finish times. So I've got a child in year 7 and in year 9. They're coming to school on the day. Are there going to be different start times, finish times, and how will I know when to send my child into school?
So just before Mr. Warner says that, can I just also let parents know that what will happen is next week on Thursday, we want to keep it as close to coming back to school as possible so that people would remember. Your head of year will be producing a video where they will literally walk you through your entrance into the school. So you will know next week Thursday exactly which entrance, and it's fine on the day if you forget, we're all there. So
Just picking up on your point on start and end times, in line with government advice and also to support our management of the building, we are doing slightly staggered start and end times to the day. We've called them waves. So we have a wave 1 start, which is 8:30, and then we have a wave 2 start, which is 8:45. What we are committed to doing is ensuring that all pupils are in the building for the start of lesson 1, which is at 9 o'clock. And what will happen is particular year groups 1 week would come in as a wave 1, so would come in at 8:30, and the next week they would come back in at 8:45 and then back to 8:30. So we get that alternation. What is important and what that allows us to do is make sure that we maintain that support around the learning family, and there's that daily contact or weekly contact as well. When pupils come in for 8:45, that will be more that initial brief contact with their learning family, a registration, and then off to lessons. When they come in at 8:30, they will have a half-hour tutorial, and we're working on that programme, and details of that will follow shortly. At the end of the day, there's a slightly staggered end. Following period 5, pupils will return to their learning families. Learning family leads will then dismiss students. It's a 5-minute stagger. We'd also be encouraging a number of students, particularly those in year 11, to remain in school should they wish, to follow and sign up for some of our super learning clubs, and more details of that will follow shortly.
Excellent. Okay, that answers most of the questions I have, but with regards to PE kit, I've got PE kit today, and kind of the questions around changing and changing rooms as well and keeping those clean. What's your process going to be with regards to my child if they've got PE on a certain day?
they come in the PE kit. So on the day that you have PE, you will wear your PE kit and you'll keep your PE kit on for the day. So that's the way we will avoid those situations. And also with the bag, you know, pupils will need to bring in their own bag into school with their other stuff in, their other books, etc. And they just need to make sure, and you can get a Lea Manor bag as well, which are very practical and make sense in terms of making sure that you're not having cross-contamination. And I say that, for instance, it's very unlikely that someone's going to walk around with a Lea Manor handbag, Lea Manor bag, rucksack on a non-school day. And so, whereas when you've got the Nike bags or Puma or Adidas or whatever, you will use that all the time. And that's where you get the lack of protection of the bubble. So I would strongly advise people to buy the Lea Manor bag, because you know then that exists in that bubble. So it's quite important that people consider that moving forward. But like I said, you come in your school uniform and you wear your PE kit all day on those days.
Okay. So as far as questions go, there's going to be quite a few other questions coming up as the year goes along, without a doubt. At Lea Manor High School, what we've tried to do is we've tried to anticipate all of your questions before we started the session, but we understand that there's going to be lots more questions from parents. Our staff are here always to help. We appreciate it's a time of high anxiety and also worries, with many people haven't left the house very often during the past few months. Please feel free to get in touch and get in touch with the school. We're currently available for any questions you do have, and we look forward to seeing you, and thank you for your support.
I think it's also fair to add that to support the return of all pupils, both in getting back into school routines, into study habits, and also overcoming anxieties, is we are running a staggered return to school, allowing us to have a full introduction with all pupils, talking them through our expectations, reaffirming standards, talking them through routines, and also getting them back into study habits. Full details of that staggered return are on our website, so please be mindful of that, and as I say, refer to that website for further details.
Absolutely. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.